Well, folks, in this video, we're going to talk about the best mercenaries builds out there right now. In some cases, just kind of the cooler, good ones. But I've got 5 builds in this video for you to check out. Now, I know right now, a lot of you are just grinding, just like me, to get good mercenaries and start assembling teams. So the idea of finishing a build like this one behind me is pretty insurmountable at the moment. But I thought it'd still be helpful to go through and showcase some of the builds that you can maybe aim for, or if you have, 5 or so of these mercenaries already, maybe you just need that 6th one you could focus on, even getting 2 or 3 in your sights up next to build towards these things could look great. Now, all that said, of course, we're still very early in the mercenaries meta. We don't have a lot of data. So these are anecdotal experiences of people who have climbed really high on the ranked leaderboards and builds that have been successful for them. I can't promise these will be good forever, but clearly they have some sort of internal synergies that exist that are propelling them above others for now. So good targets, but as always, proceed with caution. Oh, one quick note before we get into this. These are not displayed in like opener and bench order. These are just displayed via whatever was most convenient. So keep that in mind. You don't have to open with the top 3 mercenaries. You want to open with whatever combo makes the most sense, or just whatever adapts to your opponent's composition in that mulligan phase. So first up here, let's kick things off with this build from Yellybug. This was played to the #1 spot on the leaderboard, and it's a combination of a 2-card combo you're going to see quite a bit throughout this video, and quite a bit in Mercenaries PVP if you play it, which is Cairn and Diablo. These seem to be very, very popular characters. Basically, Cairn's speed buff in combination with Diablo's ability that blows people up if he's faster than them. That's a pretty good base combo to get lots of damage out. This build in that combo is supported by some fire stuff with Ragnaros, Baron Geddon, and Antonidas, giving you essentially 4 fire-based characters in total, all of which can play off of each other with various fire combos and fire synergies. You can see Baron Geddon there getting extra fire combo damage, Ragnaros providing some base passive fire damage for people when he's out there. So all in all, just big blow up potential, and all of your fire characters are across all 3 roles as well. You have a fighter with Diablo, protector with Ragnaros, and 2 casters, so you can essentially target various compositions. If they're very caster or fighter reliant or something, you still have ways to blow them up. Finishing it off here is the Lich King, who's just a great utility protector. He has some crazy slows out there to disrupt people, and that also, of course, can help you get off some big Diablo options as well. So this is a nice mix here of like some really core mercenaries, I'd say, with this top row. And this fire stuff has been a little bit less popular, and apparently Yellybug was saying some people were down on fire as a composition, but still found a lot of success as using that as kind of your big combo on top of these classic go-to mercenaries at this point. This top row, if you want to target any good mercenaries, those seem to be absolutely everywhere. Speaking of that, look at this. The top row didn't change, but I'm on to a new build. That's right. Look at that. Diablo, Lich King, and Cairn right back. Now, this Diablo is using a different item. You'll see Black Soulstone here. It's a little bit more defensive and survivable in nature, but a separate complementary piece here for this build with Jaina, Varden, and Tavish. And this build is less about like totally blowing up your opponents with crazy fire burst damage, and more about disruptions and slows and even summons in the case of Tavish and Jaina, both of which can summon some pretty big disruptive characters. But you've also just got a lot of slows and freezes. That's what Varden and Jaina and Lich King are all about. This Frost package can just completely ruin your opponent's turns with various freezes. Varden is a fantastic mercenary, we're finding out, across a lot of builds because of their just base slow they can use every turn. That helps set up Diablo, but also just helps create opportunities because you want to be quicker and go under your opponent. Tavish, it turns out, actually has some good AoE damage as well with Explosive Trap, which in particular is nice because he's a fighter and good to counter a lot of casters out there in the meta. We see a lot of prominent caster combos with sort of shadow type things. So Tavish can be a great way to deal some extra crit damage to them. Cairn and Diablo still chilling here as well. So, similar in a lot of ways, but kind of a different in-game state here. It's about locking out your opponents, maybe grinding them down as opposed to bursting them out. All right, so this one's a little crazy. This one just kind of popped up yesterday. This is a little bit more of a fringe build from what I can tell, not quite at the top of the leaderboard, but it was so unique and interesting that I had to spotlight it. It comes from Dodo Poppy, who I see who follows me on Twitter. So Dodo, if you're watching, thanks for this cool build. This is a 6-caster build. I was hoping in Mercenaries it'd be possible to do some pretty wacky stuff like this, like mono blue builds, and indeed that's exactly what Dodo's done here. And it's really it's a holy and shadow combination. So you got your top row here that's all holy characters, and you could throw those in first and just create some crazy opportunities. Stickiness still pumping out plenty of damage. Anduin and Velen can deal damage while also keeping people alive. Zyrella's proven to be a staple character, maybe losing a little steam, but still seems to pack a punch. And then you've got this backup plan where you can just burn people down with shadow stuff, particularly speedy combos with Vol'jin, bonus shadow damage with Tamsin, and Natalie can actually kind of do both. She swings between the two, so a perfect thematic fit that can also support both sides of this, along with some equipment choices that add a lot of sturdiness based on Velen and Anduin just getting a ton of health and healing extra, but also some crazy speed off Vol'jin and Natalie, so you can really make decisive big sorts of plays. And like I said, this build wasn't played to the top of the leaderboard, but still apparently climbed 1,000 ranks. So if you've got a lot of casters and this looks like a fun option, I want to try it out. I don't have Velen and Anduin ready to go, and we're getting close here. So I love this idea, particularly strong against protectors. And we've seen Lich King and Cairn are popping up everywhere. So this could give you a great way to burn through those while staying alive and then still having enough follow-up damage. And there's not that many fighters out there in the meta either. You'll notice most builds seem to be at the moment prioritized towards protector caster, which means you can get away with 6 casters maybe easier than you might expect as things like Samuro start to fall off just a little bit in the meta as we develop. All right, so moving on here. Look who it is. It's Diablo and Cairn, our good friends yet again. We also got Varden and Natalie popping up and Vol'jin again as well. But this time we're tossing in a Thrall, because Thrall is a pretty big damage output card if you got Doomhammer 4, as this build would want you to have. So this is kind of I would call almost like a good character build. It's not necessarily going for anything super specific in what it can achieve, but great slow and disruption with Varden while still pumping out damage. Vol'jin can just be speedy, crazy burst damage in combination with Natalie Celine, some of the combo shadow stuff that exists there. Natalie can just pump out a ton of damage. Thrall can pump out a ton of damage. You still have Cairn, Diablo, Varden as well as an opener, so that you can set up the crazy turn 2 Diablo pop-offs. So it's just like take all the best characters, best mercenaries that exist that have, maybe a 2 mercenary combo here or there, toss them into a build, and apparently it's working very, very well. So I really like this build because not only does it work apparently, but it might be something that's good to aim for, because any of these given mercenaries have a little bit of independence, and they're probably good and slot into various different kinds of builds. So you're not overcommitting if you work towards this sort of thing, but it's also, competitive in its own right. So, if certain things fall out of the meta, you might still have some good mercenaries to fall back on in this case. And then finally here, I wanted to showcase this build from Team America. I will say this build is probably a little older at this point, a little less bleeding edge, and may fall out of the meta in some ways because this Zyrella, Samuro, Sourfang trio here was something that was theory crafted early before the release of Mercenaries to be really powerful. Seemed really, really good at the beginning and has fallen off a little bit as people are getting more speed disruptions or taunt interruptions. Basically, Samuro seems a little bit less powerful. I just saw here that Samuro and Sourfang have their items swapped, so keep that in mind. Burning Blade goes on Samuro, Serrated Shield goes on Sourfang. You'll probably figure that out. Sorry about that. So anyway, this was played at #1 legend or #1 leaderboard spot, I guess, by Team America, and was great. And you'll see here the roots of Diablo, Cairn, and Varden yet again. This is a fantastic opener. Zyrella, Samuro, Sourfang can be a great opener too, depending on what you expect your opponents to have. So still some good stuff here, still some great characters, just one that might not be as good. But that said, Xyrella and Samuro are free. So if you're somebody who's very budget conscious, trying to put together some good compositions, I still think Xyrella and Samuro can do some work for you, and this might be a good thing to build around them essentially as you fill out and start to develop into PvP, and then, you know, pivot some of these mercenaries to the other builds you see here, or builds in the future that continue to develop as we explore Mercenaries PvP in total. So yeah, there you go. That's it for the 5 builds I wanted to spotlight here. You know, it's an ever-changing landscape on Mercenaries. 2 days ago, I didn't think something like 6 casters would be possible, and yet there it is. So, you know, stay tuned. I'll try to do more of these videos in the future, but hopefully this was still helpful to give you a little bit of guidance, if not even for, you know, sort of developing your own Mercenaries builds and parties, then maybe knowing what to expect and what to look out for from your opponents, because I'm sure a lot of people who spent the big bucks and rushed some of these teams and are grinding like crazy will probably have these, and you might see these and want to expect some of these combos in particular. Diablo Varden Cairn is everywhere that I've seen, so be really ready for that top row, especially Varden slowing you down, Cairn speeding up on turn 2, into Diablo blowing you up on turn 2 with his multi-target AoE chain thingy, whose name I can't remember despite saying it 1,000 times. All that said, anyway, thanks so much as always for watching. If you have comments, questions on these builds, comments are a great place to chat about all that stuff. I'll have some more Mercenaries kind of recaps and guides here coming in the near future now that we've got some early data coming in. So stay tuned for more of that on top of other great Hearthstone stuff. That said, thanks for watching, and until next time, game on.